Good Burger for me is like a middle child. I forgot that it existed for the majority of my life. But in all seriousness, I still think that it's a guilty watch for me personally. Now I know that the devourer of feet himself, Dan Schneider, is associated with this movie, and hell, he's even a character in the story. But it's like J.K. Rowling in a way. I may like Harry Potter, but I do not support the amount of bullshit that she spews. Just like how I enjoyed this movie, but I hate Dan Schneider in every way possible for infamous reasons. I don't like the way that he hugs the main characters in these movies. Like, he bites his lip and shit. Like, ah! I'm in no way defending him by any means, but I feel like that there is enough people on board that we can safely say that this movie was not entirely made by him. It's a shame that he has casted a gross shadow onto their careers, and I am here to say that their work should not go unnoticed. With that said, Dan Schneider, gladly go fuck yourself. At least it's good to know that he's not working on Good Burger 2. It looks like the only thing that he's given credit for is for using the name Good Burger in the characters and nothing else. It's also kind of funny how they sort of act like he doesn't exist in the second movie. It's actually really fucking commendable and a rare W for the second movie. I will get to that later. Let's move on to the review of Good Burger 1 and Good Burger 2. The original film of Good Burger is just this bad fever dream of shit happening. Meanwhile, it also manages to somehow keep its outrageous ideas more grounded for the most part. The whole plot centers around the main character Dexter crashing into his teacher's car when he didn't have his license. I just like how people are just on the sidelines just looking at this grown-ass man just attack this child in order to slip away from getting involved with the police or letting his mom know, because those two have such extreme similarities and severity there. He chooses to work at a burger place with a character named Ed who he has a deal with. He doesn't know until later in the movie is actually the whole entire reason of why he crashed his car in the first place. The banter between the two throughout the movies feels both stilted but also charming in its own way. I wondered they would have their own show with one another called Kill and Keenan, which aired before Good Burger even came out. Wait, who's the writer for that? Oh, god damn it. But I feel like a lot of the dialogue is mixed for me, because when there is a joke that I genuinely like, it lands. Like Ed jumping out of a window even though there's already open window, or him just randomly flipping this girl that is trying to seduce him due to their competitor Mondo Burger trying to get the company's secret sauce, but then the girl who was hired to seduce him gets so upset that she quits. But then there's times where I'm reminded, oh, this is for children. Like with the whole grape scene, which I wish the actor sniffed in that grape so he would stop breathing. There's multiple times where I feel like the movie goes out of its way to try and explain why the joke that they did was not funny or why it should be funny. Destroys some jokes completely from being at least funny. At least in this movie, they do it in a less ear-grating way. Do I sense foreshadowing? Also, who wrote this joke?
What's up, dude? Oh, give me 5. And on the blackhand side. Ah, yeah!
All the writers are white, by the way. They got away with that. They wrote that in for a black person to say. What the fuck? But overall, the humor is a pretty mixed bag overall. When it lands, it gets a chuckle out of me, but the jokes that don't overshadow the ones that do. The plot itself is all over the place. One minute, they're competing against this neighboring competitor called Mondo Burger, which is being organized by Logan Paul 2.0, to being locked up in an insane asylum. Meanwhile, there's a fucking dance sequence happening. Like, what the fuck type of Zaza were these smoking during this movie? My friend said that I look like the villain from this movie, and all I have to say is, you're not funny, didn't laugh, and everybody call them names. Like, come on, my forehead isn't that bad. Oh. It sort of takes the trope of two companies fighting it out to outclass the other one and flips it on its head by introducing more and more outrageous elements that feel cartoony yet not really too cartoony. The sets are kind of impressive with its low budget, which is $8.5 million. You're telling me that this movie made money? Oh my god. Nickelodeon was the A24 of the 90s. Everything Everywhere All at Once has nothing on this shit. Overall, I enjoyed this movie. I just love the goofy bad charm of it. Main characters, even though stilted, they still have a good amount of chemistry with one another. Side characters had their own charm to them. The main villain is just so bad in his acting and trying to seem like he's the villain, but he's trying, damn it. And overall, I would probably get this like a 6 out of 10. It's dumb, but it's a fun type of dumb. Now, would you believe me that there's actually a sequel out? For some reason, I thought this movie was gonna release in December, but actually released fucking in November? Which that doesn't make any sense because the original film released in the summertime, which made sense weirdly for the movie because the character was just getting into summer break. And it just made sense overall because the movie just felt really summery. if that makes any sense. Like, who the fuck thinks of burgers in November? Nah, you think that shit around like 4th of July. Anyways, I saw no advertising for this, even though my friend said that he did, which is weird because he never saw Good Burger before, so I forced him to watch the 2 movies. I mean, he watched it with his own consent, I promise. Like, you have a movie that's relatively known, and then you make a sequel to that with 0 advertising at all. The only advertising that I saw for it was at fucking Arby's, which, like, it doesn't even make any sense. It's fucking Arby's. God, I'm not even discussing the movie, and I'm already flustered about this movie. It's sort of like it's foreshadowing or something. So I'm just gonna say it right off the bat. The second movie just fucking sucks. Good Burger 2 is somehow more cartoony than the original movie, which I already don't like. The original had cartoony moments, but that is what made the movie charming. That they used the more outlandish moments and snippets so that when they showed up, they were more effective at throwing you off at its outlandishness. The first scene that you see with Ed, he's just tripping balls essentially with the burgers. And it works because it just came out of nowhere. With the new intro, it's a fucking musical. And how does the CGI look worse than the fucking burgers with eyes from the original? Oh, I guess Ed is just singing now because it's funny, and it's funny when bad singers are singing. It's funny. Did I mention that it's funny? In the second movie, there's just this overall tone of just the main 2 characters just being tired. Which, I mean, who can blame them? It's like 20 years later. The chemistry between the 2 isn't really that strong in this one because they just do not have the energy to fucking play it off. It's like when Bill and Ted returned and the actors just seem like they just want to get their paycheck and run off. The guy who returned for Ed did an okay job at returning, but I just feel like it's a mixture of the writers and the directors that sort of just misused him. Wait a minute. Do you see that in the sky? Oh, look at that. It's the return of the bad dialogue. Ooh. This time even more egregious than usual. The jokes just do not land, and some of them just go on for ages. Meanwhile, also having to explain every fucking joke in the movie because this movie does not trust you to get the fucking basic jokes that they're making. There's just an overall lack of personality in this film that it just makes it feel dull. When they tried to bring that cartoony nature back, it just doesn't work. Most of the time, you just see these characters just have boring conversations with one another. You're not really learning anything about their personalities. It's just so dry and boring. And this movie is just a repeat of the first movie. No, I'm not even joking, it is. Main character is down in his luck, so he has to get to this new job. Then he meets Ed. Then they have to deal with this competitor that is blind and is doing something that the characters think is immoral. Dexter is a slimy little shit, so he tries to scam Ed. Ed falls for it, he falls for the scam, he does a little agreement. Cartoony nature ensues. Sentimental main moment for the characters so that the main character can be like, oh shit, what I'm doing is actually wrong. Then everyone hates him for it, so then he tries to redeem himself and take down the big bad guy by doing the thing that was immoral to them. And all is good in the end. You see why I'm annoyed at this movie? It's an inferior version that you already watched. Which I felt like the ending with the whole entire robots, I just felt like they wanted to outstage the original's outrageous ending. Just everything about it, I just don't like. The humor isn't funny. The new characters that they added is just not funny in the slightest. Characters are either misused or they go through the same development as the original. Like, they introduced the fact that Ed has a son, and the actor portraying him, I just feel like he's just trying so hard. He tries to have the same mannerisms and voice as Ed, but he can just not pull it off, especially the voice. It's just so irritating most of the time.
Mom, I'm home!
Cinematography just makes the whole entire movie just feel boring. Honestly, most of the time it doesn't even feel like a movie. It just feels like something that was dropped on Tubi. This movie just looks so cheap in comparison to the original. And it has a budget that's bigger than the fucking original one. Like, there's a moment in the movie where they're confronting their competitors, but they had to go to their headquarters. But the building that they use is so obviously like a hospital or some sort of like cafeteria. It's like the director just wanted you to play pretend and just be like, oh, just pretend that that this is a headquarters and not like a place where people go to fucking die. And then there's also another scene where they have like control panels and it's just reminding me of Command and Conquer and the shitty ass sets that they had, but at least it's charming there. This is just so fucking sad. Humor is god awful. Plot is basically the goddamn same. The villain was just honestly boring in this one, and I had more enjoyment of like the little robot dog that was next to her more than anything that she was doing. The writing felt more awkward than the original. Side characters are either forgettable or extremely annoying. The movie looked like it was filmed on an iPhone, and overall it's just a very cheap and corporate cash grab. I already have low expectations going in because hell, it's a fucking sequel to Good Burger. But this movie is somehow lower than my low expectations for this movie in the first place. I didn't really like this movie. I would have to give it like a 3 out of 10. It's not even a so bad it's good like the original. It's just straight up fucking bad. Oh yeah, before the outro plays, the ending of the first movie had this moment of where they're actually critiquing the police system and how somebody rich like Kurt can just get out because they can just pay their way out, which was a line that was completely out of nowhere, which also got a laugh out of me. But I mean, it is true though. But in the sequel, they do a joke that's very similar, but not really ballsy enough to actually go through with it. I don't know, I just thought that the comparison between the endings of the movies was funny. Anyway, subscribe if you want to, like if you want to, even comment if you want to. I don't care, you do you, and have a good day. What the fuck? They're gonna make a third one? And that the director said that was gonna go on and on? What the fuck? No!